So let's create a way to actually equip and unequip weapons. So let's go on to our items and let's create our first item. We can split this into different parts later, or we can basically make this into skins or whatever. But for right now, I think just saying item, starting from object, or actually, you know what? Let's make this an abstract class. So we treat all items the same, and then we will have one for weapons. Okay, then weapon. Bring this up. Let's delete all this namespace, and this one now it's going to be item, and then we're going to create this menu, and we need the prefab for the weapon. Okay, on our controller we want to be instantiate, we want a method that will actually create two versions of our weapon, one for the FPS handler and one for the TPS handler. Okay, let's see how we should do that. We'll go from the controller actually, and we're going to do public void load weapon. We're going to be passing a weapon W. Okay, then I actually want to keep track of each weapon instance we're going to be creating. Weapon hooks, or created weapon hooks. Let's do that. Okay, and I actually need a reference to each weapon I have on me. So weapon created, not created weapons, assigned weapons. Okay, because loading a weapon, you actually need to know on what index to load to. Okay, so well, let's assume that we have one. Actually, no, loading a weapon, we also need an instance of weapon, public void instance weapon W. Okay, so instance weapon is going to be adding assigned weapon, adding on W, and then we go on to game object instantiate weapon dot prefab. Then our weapon, we know it's under, actually no, we have created, yeah, I think we should let the FPS handler control the, yeah, okay, let's do handle sway. We're not using it anymore, so this can go. We have made our method that controls it entirely of its own, so I'm actually just going to delete it. We already have a load weapon over here, but what we do not have is the instance of it. So load weapon, current weapon also needs to go. Let's assign a list of weapon hooks, created weapons. Okay, then we need public void load weapon, where you'll be passing a weapon actually. Then we're going to be instantiating a game object, which is going to be of course our prefab. Then that game object needs to be parented underneath our weapon holder. So game object will transform set parent weapon holder. Okay, geo transfer local position vectors read 0, geo transfer local rotation quaternion identity, geo transfer local scale equals vector 3.1. Okay, then we're actually going to be closing it. Okay, then this will be a load weapon, this will be equip weapon, and equip weapon is going to be based off an index. First of all, close that. So created weapons now, we need to add those. Get component children weapon hook. Okay, then equipping the weapon, we need to first check if index, or if index is less than created weapons dot count, if, and also if created weapons index is not null. Then our current weapon is going to be our created weapons index, and our current weapon ammo is going to be based on current weapon. Okay, so the weapon on the controller. Then I'm actually going to do a debug starting weapons. Okay, so this, then for each item in starting weapons, FPS handler load weapon item. Okay, then FPS handler dot equip weapon 0. Once we equip this, we actually want to do current weapon dot game object set active and set that to true. Okay, and let's test this out. We first of all need to make this into its own weapon. Let's call this way object. Let's call this AR weapon or AR rifle, whatever. Okay, I'll delete that one. Then let's do data, create folder weapons, and let's do the AR rifle. Okay, so this is now prefab, which means we can delete this. Then if all is correct, we could go and on our controller and drop down the starting weapon. We can drop down the, oh yeah, we need to create the weapon first of all, AR rifle, and we drop the prefab, and then on the controller we can use AR rifle, and hitting play we should be back to where we were, and true enough we are. So let's say I want to make a new weapon. I'm going to do AR rifle 2, and for this one, I don't know, maybe we change something. Let's assume we want to use all the prefabs, the weapons, I don't know, modular presets. Let's use this one. I'm assuming if I place them on the same position, it's going to look correct. Could be. Oops. Paste. Oh, come on. 0.2. Okay, it looks correct. So let's see. Okay, then deleting this. Okay, I think that's the M16 though. So let's call it that. M16. Okay, then if I drop now the M16, that will work, and it didn't because you have the wrong prefab. Okay, and you see, of course I need to reset again the ADS and stuff like that, but we have the, yeah, we can change now weapons, which means if we load the method for equipping a weapon into an actual input control, which means on our input on our FPS handler, we are reading the inputs from buttons, which we probably should use the input system, the new input system. But let's say, just for now, get key down, key code 1, alpha 1. I'll do equip FPS weapon 0, 1, 2, 2, 3. Okay, and let's add both weapons together. There's actually going to be one small problem. Okay, we start with 1, start with 2, but they just stay the same, of course, because we are not closing them. So equip weapon, we can do if current weapon is not null, then current weapon set game object set active false, and that will keep us with one weapon each time. Okay, so on our camera parent, let's see, we have a weapon holder. Okay, FPS part, tilter, controller. Okay, so let's start spicing some things up. So we have our weapon holder and the sway object. Basically, yeah, okay, first of all, the weapon holder sway object should actually be now the weapon holder. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and paste this in here, so this can go. But the weapon holder now is going to be a child of the hands animator. Okay, and that's just for the hands. We could use some for the main camera as well. So let's do first the hands, however. So let's add an animator to this object, and let's do animation, create assets, art, FPS animation. These are for the camera. So let's do a new folder. Let's call it hands animator, and we'll do an idle, which you're basically going to be doing nothing. It's going to be at 0 and at 0, and let's do an equipped. Okay, just to see if equip is working correctly, I'm going to drop the AR rifle first of all inside here, then I'm going to assign the idle position to it because we don't want to be aiming. Okay, then I'm going to do an equip. So equipping a weapon, we're going to get the entire hands animator, we're going to move it, going to rotate it, something like so, and then about here we're going to reset it. Yeah, that might be too small, too slow, so let's do like this. Of course, feel free to do your own animations over here, like maybe move it slightly forward, that may be too much. Okay, we can also change the curves. X, and this can be linear. Maybe not. But anyway, this is not an animation tutorial. Maybe just go all of it back or whatever. And so, as said, from here, let's do like this and like this, and then at 20 seconds, let's set all this to 0. And maybe while you're here, let's rotate. I don't know, maybe something like this. Again, this is not an animation tutorial, and I'm not an animator. So, from equipped, you go back to this. You probably don't need that much of transition duration. 0.1 would be enough. Next time can be at less than something like that. Okay, then equipped, we don't want to be looping, and probably idle, we don't really care if it's looping either. So, but we can have our FPS handler. We can now assign an animator as well for the hands. And basically, whenever we equip the weapon now, we could say hands animator, play, equip. And if we want to, we can just start as the layer default state to be the equipment. Now the idea is these animations will actually, or the animator for equipped, idle or walk, will actually be right onto the weapon itself with its hands. Okay, but since we don't have any of that, we could just be doing it this way. Now we need to assign the animator on our FPS handler. Okay. Okay, so there we go. We can now also equip weapons. I think there's something wrong with our FOV. So let's see here. Yeah, we start with very low FOV. So ADS normal, I'll do 60 for the AR, or actually we need to change the prefab. Let's do 60, and on M16 let's do 60 as well. Okay, and let's delete this one. I need that. And here we go. Okay, so now we also have changing items and weapons. And of course, feel free to make your own pistols as well, or your own weapons. See? And you can see that they are actually share the same pool of bullets. Let's check if that works as well. So rifle ammo, I'm going to assign pistol ammo to the AR, and let's see if we have our inventory. Yeah, pistol ammo is 120. So assuming this is pistol ammo and I reload, okay, you can see that pistol ammo is less than 100 now, while the ammo, yeah, while this is higher. Now one thing you can see, if I keep pressing 1, I'm pretty much equip the same weapon, so we could just keep track of the current weapon index. So if current weapon index equals index return, and current weapon index will actually start as -1 because it's much, yeah, because you might want to equip the first weapon. Okay, and that didn't work because we never assigned the current weapon index. So once you're here, you'll do current weapon index equals index, and that should fix it. Awesome. So let's end the video here because we are at a natural point. Yeah. So we can have different weapons and we can equip them. So when we get back, we'll actually start adding some TPS parts to go along with our FPS. Awesome. So I'll see you on the next part.